Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Motivational Monday, right? I hope you all had a really great weekend. Kind of a yucky day out today, depending on where you are. We're in Florida, and it's raining and yucky, but that doesn't mean we can't have a good day. We need the rain, right? So that everything can grow. Anyway, so for Motivational Monday, I don't know where you guys are in life, but I know in a lot of ways I feel like I'm a slave to some things. What you feel like you're a slave to, it could be anything from debt, everyday bills, work, food, some other addiction. I don't know, problems with your family. It could be anything, right? I think probably most of us feel entrapped or enslaved by something. So I'm going to tell you a story about a boy, and this boy was despised and betrayed by his brothers. It was a large family. Um, there were 12 brothers in total, and this boy was the 11th in line of the 12. The family dynamic was a little weird too. The father had children with four different women, right? But we won't get into that dynamic and how that happened. But what I can tell you is the boy that this story is about, the father was truly in love with the mother. The mother was the father's, one true life. So he favored this boy over the other 10 that came before him. And they knew it, and it bothered them. So in this story, the boy's name is Joseph. Okay. Well, Joseph, like any other kid, didn't know how to keep his mouth shut. He knew his father favored him, and he felt special. His father had given him this beautiful coat that he wore around, and Joseph was also favored by the Lord and had some dreams. And in these dreams, Joseph could see that at some point in time, his family or his brothers would report to him or be subservient to him. And he just did not have the sense to keep his mouth shut and was, you know, bragging, I guess, on the story to his brothers, telling them, how this would happen one day. And this really ticked them off. Well, because he was the favorite, they couldn't beat him up or do anything in front of the father because the father would then probably punish all of them. So this family was in agriculture of some sort, and the brothers, the 10, were out with the flocks one day, and they were, grazing them, getting them fed. The father had asked Joseph to go check on them. So when the brothers saw Joseph coming from afar, they thought, oh, this is our chance, right? Let's kill him. Right? It sounds like who were those boys that killed their parents, right? The Menendez brothers, right? So they were plotting to kill him, and the oldest brother, Reuben, I think his name was, convinced them to not kill him, convinced them to just throw him in a pit and just leave him there for the lions to kill him. Sounds great, right? But Reuben, in the back of his head, had another plan. He thought he would go back later and save Joseph so that he wouldn't get killed like that. Well, lo and behold, before Reuben even had a chance to go back and rescue Joseph from this pit that his brothers had put him in, the brothers had this thought, why should his blood be on their hands? And they decided to do what in modern day we would call human trafficking. And they sold Joseph into slavery. And Joseph kind of got passed along through different people for slavery, and he ended up at Potiphar's house, which Potiphar reported to Pharaoh. So I guess in this situation, you could say Joseph was imprisoned, unjustly, right? How many of you feel imprisoned unjustly to the things that you have in your life, the grind, the everyday, get up, go, you don't do it. Most likely you don't do it because you're thrilled and excited about it. You do it because you have to, because our society was built in such a way that we remain enslaved our whole lives. So anyway, regardless of the negative situation that Joseph was in, he remained very faithful to God. He remained righteous in his ways. He remained diligent, and he worked with honor. And this didn't go unnoticed. And he, I would say, got promoted through the ranks, and he ended up ruling Potiphar's house. So this bad situation, something kind of good came from it. So he came up out of that valley of imprisonment, and now here he is up here, kind of at the top of things. He being one of the heads of Potiphar's household. He got the finest of everything, the best linens, the best foods. He had people reporting to him. It wasn't a bad life for being imprisoned, enslaved. Well, just like in our lives, you come up out of it, and then you got to go back down into that valley, right? So what happens to Joseph is Potiphar's wife finds him very attractive, and she wants him to, do the dirty. Joseph, recognizing that this would probably cause him to be beheaded or something, did not want to succumb to the temptation. And he was always resisting, until one day Potiphar's wife caught Joseph when nobody else was around, and there was no way for him to just silently escape the situation. And he went to run out of the room, and Potiphar's wife grabbed the coat that he had on and kept it. And feeling so dejected, she pulled a Blake Lively, and she said that he tried to take advantage of her. Well, as you can imagine, this landed Joseph back down in the dungeon. Luckily, God was with him, and he didn't get beheaded. Well, even in prison, down in the dungeons where he was being kept, he remained faithful to God and knew that the Lord was with him. And he did everything he could to make the best of it. So much so that the guards put him in charge of the prisoners when he was there. So even in this horrible situation, he still found favor. And by remaining faithful and keeping his ways in line with the Lord, it wasn't a horrible situation. Okay? So remember earlier we talked about Joseph's ability to interpret dreams. Well, while he was in prison, he had interpreted some dreams for people. And there came a point when he interpreted dreams for, I think it was the baker and the cupbearer. And the dream that he interpreted for the cupbearer had a very favorable outcome that said that the cupbearer was going to be restored to his position, to be Pharaoh's cupbearer. And in the excitement of hearing the good dream result for the cupbearer, the baker's like, oh, well, interpret my dream. Well, his dream was not so good. The end result of his dream is that he ended up being beheaded. And lo and behold, both of these things happened. So the Lord had helped Joseph interpret these dreams correctly. And Joseph had asked that cupbearer, please remember me when you get restored to your position. Well, of course, the cupbearer gets restored and he goes to his position, but he doesn't remember Joseph. And several years go by, or at least a long period of time goes by. And he doesn't remember Joseph or do anything to help him. But then one day, Pharaoh has this dream, and the dream is really bothering him. And he can't find any of the magicians or wise men in the land. Nobody is able to interpret this dream. So then the cupbearer remembers Joseph at this point, and he tells Pharaoh that there was this guy down in the dungeon that was able to interpret dreams. So Pharaoh brings Joseph up to him to interpret the dreams. And needless to say, the Lord was with Joseph and he provided the interpretation for the dreams. Well, here we go, back up that valley again, right? So after Joseph was able to interpret the dream, the result of that dream was that basically there was going to be 7 years of prosperity in the land. And that 7 years of prosperity was going to be followed by 7 years of famine. So it was a warning saying, you need to be very diligent in what you do in your prosperity, so that when you're in that famine, you are able to survive and that you're able to help others survive through that period of time. Okay? So Pharaoh could see that Joseph was highly favored with God. So, in the Bible, I think they call it his God, or Joseph's God, because Pharaoh obviously didn't believe in God, but, he could see that whatever Joseph worshiped was very strong and real, and that it helped him interpret these dreams. So he saw fit in that moment to elevate Joseph now to a position over the whole land of Egypt and develop a plan that would save the people during the 7 years of famine. So then, guess what happened? The brothers ended up being subservient to Joseph, and their life relied on him, right? So the real message that I want to get across is that you're starting another week, and I'm sure you're probably living for the weekend or for whenever your days off are, right? But don't take every day as the blessing that it is. Be diligent. Do what you do as though you're doing it for Jesus. And I used to have this joke with my friends. I used to work at Domino's Pizza, and I was a pizza maker. And somebody said to me, how do you do that, all day long? And I said, it's not so bad. I get to work in the morning, I play my worship music, and I make my pizzas like I'm doing it to please the Lord. And one of my friends yelled out, you mean you make pizzas for Jesus? And yes, absolutely I did. And everything you do, you have to do for Jesus, even if you're laid off right now. Do it as though you're doing it for him. Go through every day. Take some more time. Spend it in your Bible. Spend time with him. Spend time in prayer. Take time to listen to him. Hear what he's telling you to do. Be diligent in your faith. And I can tell you that even when you're down here, he's with you. And he's going to carry you up that hill no matter how hard it gets. Trust me, I know. Been unemployed for 6 months now, and it's okay. We make it. If we don't let it kill us, it really does make us stronger, and we really are able to live in that place of faith, even though it gets hard sometimes. And I know it does. It gets hard for me. I've had some bad weeks and some bad days. But at the end of that day, your days can be a hill and a valley too. Your days can just be a small segment of it. So stay faithful, stay with God. If you want to read the story of Joseph, the way that it's really written and not my abridged version of it, You can read it in Genesis chapters 37 through 50. I had to let go of the music because I was getting flagged for copyright and my videos weren't getting seen. So later today, we're going to do a video that talks about that feast and famine, those times, and how we can work ourselves through them. Okay? But for now, just have a great morning. Enjoy yourself. I'll put a link to a peppy worship song for you to listen to in the description for this video. And as always, do me a favor, subscribe to one of my channels or like it, like the videos, help get the message out, share it. I hope you found this somewhat relatable and inspirational, and I hope you have a wonderful, blessed day.